This is A Silent War Within, the podcast dedicated to confronting the unseen mental health battles carried by our first responder and healthcare heroes. This show is about real stories, real struggles, and real ways to survive the storm and come out stronger on the other side. For too long, stigma has kept you silent, but this is your space to bravely break that silence, share vital insights, and build a community where your well-being truly comes first, because your service deserves unwavering support.
Welcome, everybody, to A Silent War Within. I am so excited to not only have our guest today, but to also have you guys with us. As always, you can find us on all the social media platforms. And I say that every episode, but I want to very much reiterate that we never did this to get famous. We did this for first responders to have a safe place to land. Thankfully, people are believing that and kind of attaching themselves to that. And we've been reached out to numerous times. And that is just the best, to have somebody reach out to you for help when they're in kind of a bad spot. So we know we're doing our job here at A Silent War Within when we do have those people that reach out and desire to have help. Well, let me introduce you to our guest today. This is Cody Mecham. Cody just wrote a book, Burning It Down. So I'm about 70 pages into this book. It is a fantastic read. It's an easy read, but it is also a fantastic read. Cody, welcome to the show, and just tell us about your story. We want to hear all the things that you've experienced in life up until your first responder career and how you got into book writing.
Well, jumping into getting into book writing, it actually just started as a therapy project, really just taking notes for therapy, and started looking at stuff. My wife was looking at stuff, and we decided, hey, people need to hear this story, right? People need to understand that it's okay to talk about your past. It's okay to talk about what you're going through. And, book starts off pretty heavy into my childhood. It wasn't the best childhood, and I kind of wanted to hit on that because studies are starting to show now that, first responders, military, our ACE scores, our adverse childhood experiences are through the roof compared to the general public. And so I wanted to touch on my childhood just to show people, like, hey, you're not alone in this. Like, a lot of us have these adverse childhood experiences that it does damage to us, and we don't realize until later on when we get into this career path and more stuff keeps building and building and building, and it all accumulates into disaster.
Yeah, that's an interesting take on it. And I think the more we interview people, the more it has become evident that everybody that gets into this career has some traumatic event long ago in their life. They want to be that helper. They don't want to be in that situation anymore. And you even mentioned it in your book. I think the way you said it was, I didn't want to be in that situation anymore, and I wanted to be the one to make sure nobody else was in that situation ever again as well. I think so many of us come from that background, and the more we get into interviewing people, the more that just continues to shine through. I think that there is a real universal truth to this, that it's okay to speak up, and sometimes it feels like the world's on fire and everything's going wrong. And your book resonates really deeply with the first responder community as well as veterans, because and this is a thing that somebody must need to hear, because this is the fourth or fifth week we've hit on this. We often tie our entire identity to our job. And I think that's a little bit about what, some of the things that your book pulls out. When your life was burning down, as the title is for the book, how much of that pain was the loss of yourself or your professional identity, do you feel like?
A huge part of that. In my book, I go over how super reluctant to move out to Vernal, like, didn't have a career here, didn't know anybody. My family was out here, but as soon as we moved out here, I mean, it took me years and years and years to figure this out, but it was a part of me that was gone, right? To me, it felt like I had to be that first responder. I had to have purpose. Without the fire department, I had zero purpose. And so life was just, it was miserable, really. And I couldn't see the good in it. There was a lot of good in it, but I couldn't see it. Like, my entire identity was tied to, I'm a first responder. I have to be helping people.
At the same time, I really liked that there were many times throughout your life, and we won't give away what the book's about. That's why I don't want you to go into detail, because the book is so good, because it's so detailed. But there were many times in your life, and not just through childhood, like even into your adult years, that you felt unseen or you felt too far gone. Or many times in the book, you referenced that little boy that was scared and hiding, and that he was still in there. What does isolation feel like when you're outwardly functioning, but internally everything's just a mess?
Well, and we do, especially you see it a lot in the fire department industry. Like everybody's got it worse than us, right? We don't want to help ourselves. We just bury and bury and bury. And for me, it's kind of like, we get so good at, we're trained to do it. We get so good at not showing the emotion that we're feeling inside, that everything's fine, everything's going to be okay. When
Mhm.
inside we're burning down, we're digging a trench, and soon enough those walls are going to cave in on us. We don't have the support on the trench to hold everything back. And so it's tough because it does, you see it. Yeah, I see it just so much in the first responder community, especially fire department, where we just look at it and say, no, everybody's got it worse than I do. Like, I can handle this. I can manage this. I don't need help. And so far from the truth. Like, just going to one counseling session, and you'll see that, okay, there's some stuff down there. Even if it's not
Mhm.
PTSD, one therapy session with somebody that's trained in trauma can show you that, hey, okay, I'm not all the way fine. I don't need to bury this stuff.
Yeah, you're exactly right. It was funny. It was an odd experience for me to be that person who I was just unbothered by the world. And that's the kind of mantra that I live by. Even the bad calls, I just wouldn't be bothered. Everybody said I had, that I was so icy all the time. I just had ice in my veins or all those things that we reference each other to. But then when I went to therapy and I started to go down that road, it was like, no, it's not that it didn't bother you. It's just that you learn how to repress it really well.
Yeah.
You learn how to shove it to the bottom, and now it's all going to come back up. And it was a disaster, of course. At what point did you take all these kind of notes from therapy, and at what point did you say, you know what, I think I'm gonna write, I think I'm gonna get a book out of this? Because there
It,
had to be more thought to it than just I'm gonna publish my therapy notes.
Yeah, no, and it was I started, started getting on TikTok and watching all these first responders and hearing their stories, and a lot of it resonated, and a lot of it was like, okay, like there's more people out there than just me. There's more people out there that need to know, like, you're not alone in this. You're not the only one going through it. Like, cuz we isolate it and we feel like we're the only one going through it. Everybody's got stuff far worse than us, so why even talk about it? And I wanted to write the book and say, hey, look, my life, like, and that's why it's a no holds bar. Like, I reveal everything of my life, the good, the bad, the miserable, the ugly. And I did that just so that people could see, like, hey, if I can expose myself like that, like, people can go talk. And that's the whole basis behind the book, is just to get people talking.
And I think that people are kind of drawn to that level of honesty, and everybody's looking for somebody that's just genuine. And I think that this book is, if for anybody listening to this book is awesome because it's so genuine and because it's so unadulterated. It's just everything's out there. What courage it must have taken you to look at this on paper and go, yeah, it's a book. I'm going to do it. Like, that's a lot of, I mean, because there's a lot of you can tell through the way that you're writing, there's a lot of you poured into this book. Like,
Yeah.
it was taking a picture of Cody Mecham and just pouring it over paper until it finally turned out, because there's a lot of your life that, man, I don't know if I could share. There's parts of that I don't know if I could share. So I definitely have respect for you and what you're doing. Reading it, I was just like, wow, this guy is just bearing it all. And I love it. I love that kind of stuff. But that's probably part of the therapy for you.
And it is like, going to therapy, I tried EMDR, stuff like that, but it didn't really work for me. Like, I'm still in therapy today. I'm a year and a half into
Right.
therapy. And for me, therapy is just a conversation, right? And so a lot of that came out in therapy, just like talking back and forth. And then, because, therapy for me, I was always reluctant. I never in a million years thought I'd go to therapy. And it
Yeah.
started out as going as couple therapy, right? Me and my wife, like, hey, we have a problem. Let's get this fixed. let's go to couples therapy. And then that slowly shifted in me, like, oh wow, like, hey, I'm a huge problem of this, like huge factor in all of this. Realizing that was kind of where the notes come down. Like, I need to write down everything that's come into my head because I got to figure out where I'm broken or where I've gone wrong. It, and I mean, it's pretty much a therapy session. That's pretty much the memoir is everything that's come out in therapy, even some of the stuff in there, some of the stuff that you probably can't talk about on here. Like that stuff that it didn't even come out in therapy. Like that was just kind of aftermath of writing the
Yeah.
book, and it just
Yeah.
poured onto the pages.
But I really enjoy that part of it. And one of the things that you say in the book that I have used, and I think I put a picture of my most recent speaking event. I had a picture of, there's a Danson picture that he painted that's got a phoenix kind of rising out of the back of this firefighter. And you say a line in this that really made me think of that particular picture. And it's what matters most is what we do with the ashes, because it
Yeah.
all burns down, right? And what was the first tiny thing that you chose to start? What's the first baby step that you start toward healing in this whole, and I have an opinion about what this is for you, but I want to hear your answer because it's interesting to see how the book is written and what you do with your life and how you start to slowly rebuild. What was the first tiny step that you took, you think?
So for me, it was, there's a really dark moment, and there's a couple really dark moments in my life.
Yep.
For me, there's a really, really dark moment that's in the book, and I'm glad that I survived it because at that point, that was the okay, there's something seriously wrong with me moment, right? And from that, it kind of spiraled into okay, I'm still not ready to go to therapy. I'm still not ready to acknowledge that I'm broken, but I'm going to start listening to people now. My wife would tell me, like, hey, did you really need to be that rough with the kids? Did you really need to yell that bad? And it was
Mm-hmm.
listening. It was starting to listen, right? Starting to listen to
Yeah.
myself, like, oh man, no, I didn't need to do that. Like, okay, let me fix that. And it was just fixing little bits and pieces at a time. And being the firefighter and first responder, at first it was, I'm going to fix myself, right? I can do this. I can fix myself. I've, I'm certified in DBT. So the problem is, and this came out in counseling, is counselors you can't fix yourself because you're always going to have something to say about yourself, right? That justifies
Right.
it. And
Right.
there's no way to justify half the actions that I've done in my life except for, man, I was in a bad spot.
Yeah. I, reading the book, one of the most profound moments to me among the many, but one of the things that I kind of felt like restored a little bit of your faith that something was there that you could actually work with. Even though there's all that happens after, when Dee is sitting on the couch with you just silently after everything else has happened, it was one of those things where I was like, it almost felt like, oh, this guy's got a glimmer of hope. And it just kind of kept going. And even as things got worse and worse and worse, it almost felt like that just kind of followed you a little bit, that was your glimmer of hope, that there is somebody that just silently cared enough to stay. And I just loved that part of the book, probably because I got a bunch of, what's it called? Shoot, I lost my train of thought. Abandonment issues.
Right.
So because I have a bunch of abandonment issues with my parents, I always think, the ones that stayed are just so huge in my life because I think, and I've said this to my wife in our counseling and church counseling, everything that we've done. I was like, when you leave the house, because she's an avoider, so she wants her time to step away and get not mad because she's going to say something to hurt myself, or to hurt herself or myself or somebody's self. Somebody's getting hurt. Um, but she don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, so she'll step away. And I told her early on in our marriage, we've been married for 11 years now, but I told her early on, I was like, when you leave, my brain is freaking out because that's what I'm used to in my life. So I really love that part. It resonated with me big when, you guys it had to be awkward, but you guys didn't even say anything. You're just sitting there together and just,
Yeah.
okay, this is what it is. And I just thought that was something that I felt like, even though you're not a character, I know this is real, the character of you just kind of carries throughout the book. And there's numerous times, and I'm waiting to get to the rest of it. Like I said, page 70, I still got some I still got some going to do, but super good so far. One of the other things I wanted to talk to you about here, and I'm, like I've told you guys before, I always send out just a conversation guide and we kind of build on it a little bit. You emphasize that transformation isn't born in comfort, it's forged in fire. I think that was one of the lines in the book, if I got that one right.
Yeah.
For the person listening right now who's kind of in the depth of that pain, what's the value of sitting in the pain rather than running from it or stuffing it down, as our culture kind of teaches us to do in the emergency services line?
And for me, I put that in there because it was one of those things that until I could name what was wrong, I couldn't fix it, right? And
Right.
so sitting there with my pain and being able to name the emotion I'm feeling, being able to name what's wrong, until I finally named it as PTSD, it was just, I've got an attitude issue. I've got some anger issues. It was, but being able to just sit there and reflect on yourself and get to know, it's like we're having right now, just a conversation pretty much with
Yeah.
yourself
Yeah.
to figure out and name what's going on, then you can build from that. But if you just bury it down so deep that it just sneaks in, you never have a name for it. And it's just, you'll make excuses for it every single time. It's just, oh, I've got an anger
Yep.
issue. Like that
Yep.
person just approached me wrong. So I snapped at them. But
Mm-hmm.
finding the name, finding it and having a conversation with that and realizing that now that I know that I have PTSD, or now that I know that I have even just symptoms of PTSD, I mean, you
Mm-hmm.
can have the symptoms without having full blown PTSD, but knowing that you have those, now you have something to build on. It's not just sitting on mud or sand. You have a foundation that you can start building and building the tools necessary to not fix yourself, because I don't know if you can ever fully fix yourself, but you can function and you can be better.
Yeah. And I can remember when I was diagnosed with PTSD, anxiety, and I don't remember what the other one was, but the PTSD and the anxiety were the biggest ones. And I'm like, but I'm not anxious. I don't feel anxious about anything. I feel angry. And she's like, yes, but your anxiousness leads to your anger. You're anxious and worried about a situation or something's not going your way. And then you get mad because you automatically assume it's not going to go your way. And that was kind of really hard for me to wrap my head around, because what I felt was just anger. I was just mad.
Yes.
I was just angry. And I'd pop off and I'd feel better after I popped off because the pressure had released. The valve had, but it took a long time for me to go, what's making me feel this way, and kind of slow down a little bit. And it was very helpful to have an understanding and a name. And the more that she taught me what that meant, and the more that she taught me what anxiety was and how I could cope with it, and realize that your body is becoming triggered because your mind is running circles. Take a breath, slow down, like all those things. They were very easy for me to do once I named it and put it in my head and could say, this is my anxiety.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't have panic attacks and things like that. It was just that my anxiety was making me so overly anxious and worried that I would become angry. So that was naming it as a huge part of getting through
Yeah.
half of this stuff.
And it really, and it is. It's one of those things where, I mean, I still struggle with it today. I'm not saying that it's a cure all. Like
Sure.
if I go
Sure.
into Walmart, I'm an anxious mess, and I know that. My wife
Uh-huh.
knows that. Like, we've developed a code word. Like, hey, if I tell her, hey, like, I need to go somewhere, like, it's okay. Let's get out. Let's get out of Walmart. Let's get out of the situation we're in. Even if we're at the house, and I'm like, hey, can we just go out somewhere? It's developing a code word with her, like, that she now knows, okay, like your anxiety's going through the roof. You're going to start getting angry. You're going to start twitching, like tapping my fingers. Like I've got the whole gambit of things, but
Yeah.
we've been able to name it and build blocks off it. So now that when it does happen, I can recognize it and we can get it ahead of it before it spirals.
And I think we hit on this next point a little bit, but you really have started to create, and I feel like this book will continue to grow as the more word gets out there about it. But I think you develop a great sense of brotherhood through writing this book, because you're so open and honest and you share really vulnerable parts of you. And we really talked about how it was some connection and healing for you too, going through it, which is an awesome thing. So did you get on and write this on like because Amazon's got a book writer project that Salty Paramedic did his book on.
Right.
And I'm just wondering, what was there a program you use? Like, how do you go about writing a book?
So this was all done on Word docs, and I gave my wife the password to Word docs so she would go through and read it and make sure, because I mean, there's a lot of moments that I'm not proud of, and there's some moments that she's not proud of in there. And so I wanted to make sure that everything I was writing was okay by her as well. Like,
Sure, sure.
I don't want to throw anybody under the bus or anything like it. I want to make sure that it's good,
Mhm.
right, for everybody involved, because that's the ugly truth of PTSD, is that it affects us and then we affect, I heard somebody say, like, the effect on you will affect 10 other people, which will affect 10
Mhm.
other people, and it just grows.
It just grows. You're exactly right.
And so I wanted to make sure that she was okay with everything in there, because going through therapy, I was able to see, like, hey, she reacted this way because I wasn't there. Emotionally, I'm completely numb through half this book, right?
Right. And you say that multiple times, yeah.
And so going into like creating that brotherhood, and it is like I want to be so vulnerable as if I'm talking to my brothers and sisters, like, because everybody is. Every time I see on the news that a firefighter, a cop, or somebody's taken their own life, it's
Yeah.
devastating to me. I had a good friend of mine take his own life, and it's
Me
devastating, because
too.
it's like we could do better. And we should be doing better for our first responders. We should be have that brotherhood to where everything is safe for us to talk about, no matter how dark it is, no matter how uncomfortable it is. We need to create that to where it's a safe place for us to talk.
Absolutely. So did your wife know the extent of your past, or was it something you guys kind of waded through together in writing this book?
So some of it came out. I mean, she knew a lot of my past, and we've talked a little bit of it. I mean, once we started going to therapy and I started learning how to open up and talk, we've gone through a lot of it. And you know, there's a moment when I'm 13 that she didn't know about until
Mhm.
I had started the book, but I hadn't wrote that into the book yet. And so I talked to her before I wrote it into the book, because it's a very dark point for me.
Mhm.
So, but for the most part, therapy kind of gave us that open-ended communication to where, and I still struggle with it. Like that, she still gets upset with me all the time. Like, hey, something's wrong and you're not telling me. And it's just, I struggle with it still to this day, but I'm learning to open up more, and I feel better when I open up more.
And if your wife's anything like mine, I can be in the midst of that, like, getting triggered, getting aggravated, and she's like, "What's wrong with you?" And I'll say, "Nothing's wrong with me." And she's like, "You can try to lie to somebody else. I know you better than any human on this planet, and I know that something is wrong with you." But one of the things that I did that I want to transition into this next one, for a long time, even after I kind of knew that something was going on, I had not been officially diagnosed, had not put any names to it, but I tried all these quick fixes. So I went down the road of, like, the typical bad coping, and went to drinking and tried some painkillers and numerous other things that I was doing that were quick fixes for the moment. It would solve the problem,
Yeah.
but for 6 to 8 hours, and that was it. And then the problem's back. Why do you think it's so dangerous for us to do that? What do you think the difference is between the genuine and simply masking that damage or that pain that we carry?
Well, and for first responders and military in general, like, our brains are wired differently. I mean, there's studies coming out now that are showing, like, hey, we've retrained our brains to act certain
Hmm.
ways. So these small, quick fix coping mechanisms, they become problem really fast, because our brain is wired to, hey, this helped me. This is good. This has helped me. And I went through the same phase, like drinking all the time, saying horrible. I mean, for me, I felt good because it's, hey, this is when I can express myself, right? I'm
Hmm.
drinking, I can express myself. But it was horrible, hateful things that no person should ever hear. And it was the wrong way to cope. And I mean, knowing now that my brain is wired like that, I mean, I still have a drink every once in a while, but I know that if I'm having a bad day, that's not a good day for me to drink.
Mm-mm.
If I'm having a good day
Mm-mm.
and everybody's happy, okay, yeah, I can have a drink and we're good to go. But if I'm having a bad
Right.
day, it's not a good thing, because it just triggers that response of, well, now I can talk. Now I can be honest. Now I can, but you're not truly honest. You're just, everything's spiraling out of control.
Yeah. Yeah, you're exactly right. For the longest time, anytime there was a bad day, I was going to go home and tie a few on, and that was my coping. And once I kind of had that, I guess, buzz, chill out feeling, whatever you call it, wherever you live, there was some relief, but it was so short lived. And I can just remember very vividly waking up a few mornings and not feeling great because you're not completely hungover, but you got that kind of lasting effect, and you're like, why'd I do that?
Yeah.
Why did I do that? And you just kind of get into that motion of doing that over and over and over. There were a few guys that I worked with that went straight to, and I talk about this in my presentations that I present, in my education that I go around North Mississippi and Southwest Tennessee presenting. But, there's a piece of that that nobody wants to talk about. And some of this you kind of mention in your book, and especially in some of your actions that you describe in the book. There's a couch in every EMS station that nobody wants to sleep on. That's my line, that and nobody wants to sit on, because that's, we tend to turn to sexual deviancy as a coping mechanism as well. And it's kind of taboo to talk about because nobody wants to admit that. But let's just be real and upfront. Sometimes EMS, fire, cops, we're all hoes.
Right.
I mean, we all get kind of categorized as that anyway. And I think that it's important to bring that as well to the forefront. I mean, we talk a lot about alcohol and substance abuse and suicidal thoughts, but as well, that sexual deviancy leads into a lot of those feelings of just overwhelming sadness, and that's what we're trying to get past. So your book, I guess, would be considered a memoir, right? I mean, it's pretty
Yeah.
much your life.
It's my life. I mean,
It's your life. Yeah. But I think it also, people can take this and use it almost as a roadmap of almost what not to do. I know that doesn't, I don't want
yeah.
that to come out offensive, but it's kind of, look what happened to me. Don't do this. And it's kind of a roadmap a little bit. What's a piece of like guiding tangible advice that you live by now that helps you maintain your mental health and prevent this relapse into burnout, depression, all the things that we deal with?
Communication. Plain and simple, like communication has been the key for me. Like learning how to talk to my wife, learning how to express, because I mean, I never went out and physically cheated, but there's plenty of people that I gave the parts that my wife needed, right? The emotional parts of my life. I would have conversation with other female firefighters, other female cops, dispatchers, stuff like that, that were deep and emotional. I name it in my book. It's, I was emotionally cheating on my wife for
Sure.
a lot of this because I didn't think she needed to know the darkest parts of me. But finding that one person that you can communicate with, that you're learning to communicate with, that's probably the biggest thing that's helped me maintain my mental health because like I said before, like if I'm struggling, she knows it. And if I'm really struggling and I say like a code word, that's a really good thing to do is to create this honest communication with your wife or your partner or somebody so that you can say like, hey, I'm struggling. I need to get out of the house. And it doesn't have to be that exact I'm struggling because I know first responders like military, we have a hard time saying I'm struggling. So just saying, hey, I need to get out of the house. Okay, that's code word. Let's get out of the house. Let's go do something fun that you like to do. Let's stop the spiral before, like communicating so that you can stop the spiral before it becomes manic, like before it becomes
Right.
irreversible is probably the biggest advice I can give to anybody is find somebody that you can talk to honestly.
And the other thing that I love about that, and I want to ask this because this is for my benefit too, is your wife the only person that you have that communication with, or are you this guy all the time that wants to talk about any and everything anybody wants to talk about?
I am now. Like if I see somebody that is struggling, I want them to know that, and that's part of writing this memoir too. Like I stressed and stressed and stressed because there's a lot of me in there, and I didn't want my new department that I'm working on.
Mm.
I stressed about them reading it, but then it was, no, I want to be that person. I want to be that person that somebody can come up to me and even if they don't want to admit it, they can come up to me and create a safe word. One of my, one of the
Mhm.
guys on the department, if they come up to me and say, "Hey, you got a minute to talk?" I'm there now. Like I
Yeah.
know what it feels like to be, going back to like drinking and stuff. And, I was missing shifts because I was drunk. And I hate to say it, but like the salty crew that I was on, it was like, he's drunk, whatever, he missed a shift.
Yeah.
There wasn't that, hey, let me check on this guy and see if he's doing okay. Like this is out of the norm for him. Like firefighting's his life. He lives, breathes, and sleeps it. Like, what's going on? Why is he missing shifts? And there wasn't any of that. So I want to be that guy that anybody, like TikTok and stuff. I've had so many people reach out to me on TikTok, and
Mhm.
I love it. Like I'm like, okay, I want to be that person that you can have an honest communication with and move forward with your life. Because sometimes that's all it takes is that one honest communication, and let people get stuff off their chest.
Yeah, as I said in the first part of the show, I think we never started this to get famous, but one of the best parts of doing this is people reaching out to you. And, I had one reach out to me, and I won't reveal any names because it's a very personal story, but he literally said, between your show, and he named off a few other accounts that he follows, he said, I was sitting in the floor with a gun beside me and contemplating suicide. He said, I'd not made a plan, but I was certainly contemplating. And he said, between your videos, he said, I took time to watch your videos. Dan Jarvis was another creator that runs Healing the Hero, that he watched his videos and he went and looked at other things. And he said, you were a huge part of me not taking my life, because your story and listen to your podcast made me realize that other people have gone through difficult things too, and there's a way to get past it. Like, I think that's what I love most about your book, that it is so honest and open, and it's almost like a chronological timeline of all the bad things that happened to you, whether it's bad calls or childhood trauma, and that stuff's really hard to talk about.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it was probably an emotional journey writing all that down on paper.
It was hard, and it
Yeah,
was reliving a lot of stuff that I had buried down that even I had forgot about. It's like I
yeah,
mentioned before, like there's some stuff in there that even didn't come out in therapy. It was just typing away, and then all of a sudden it was on the page. Like, oh wow, I guess I needed to get that out. Like, okay,
yeah, even and I think people have this very odd mentality when it comes to therapy and dealing with their problems, because one of the things that I see is people will go to therapy, they'll talk about their problems, and they think they just go away. They think they don't trigger you anymore. Or they think they don't have an emotional response. And I was reminded of that a few weeks ago. I was preparing for the first time that I was ever going to actually give my presentation that I had wrote, my education source that I had wrote, to a crowd, to an audience. So I'd given it to my wife, I'd given it to some coworkers, of course, but it was the first time that I was going to give it to a crowd. So I wanted to, everybody that has listened knows that I had a pediatric drowning that almost wrecked my career. It was just one of those things that, and I've seen worse. That was the weird thing about it. I had seen all this worse stuff, but something about that particular little boy, it just broke me, and he wound up dying, and just negative outcome, just not great. And I contacted his parents and I was like, hey, do you mind if I share this through my education to help others? And they were very, very kind and allowed me to do that. But I couldn't remember, and I didn't want to reach out to them any more than I had to. I keep hitting this mic, any more than I had to, you know. But my wife looked back at our text messages from 2017. She did a lot of scrolling, and found the obituary and sent it to me. And I was driving to work. And when that obituary hit my phone, I realized that I had suppressed that little boy's face. When I saw it pop up on my screen, I had to pull over because I was like just very overwhelmed all in one moment. I don't think that dealing with your problems is the same as erasing them from your memory. And a lot of times we get caught up in that. Oh, well, this, I've dealt with it. It's done and gone now. And that's not the way the brain works.
no, no, and for me, it smells. Like smells for me is a huge trigger. Like I don't know, it's hard to explain, but I had a call November. When was that? 2011, 2012, but it's in my memoir. And for me, it's that like cold skin smell. I don't know if it's hard to explain, but people with
No.
cold skin and it's, and you got to learn how to balance that because I've got kids, like they go outside and play in the wintertime. They come in. Okay, that's going to be a trigger for me every time. There's no way to outside of trying ayahuasca or any of those other crazy methods that are coming out now which, hey, if it helps, it helps. But outside of that, like those are still triggers to me. And you've got to learn to realize that it doesn't just go away. It's going to be with you, but you can find the tools to manage the outcome of that.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And I mentioned Dan Jarvis and Healing the Hero, and I would highly recommend anybody that's listening, you included, Cody, that if you haven't heard of this, I was at an EMS conference and Dan was speaking and he was talking about his particular treatment, and kind of what he does is take you back to whatever that traumatic event is mentally. He makes you talk through it. And as you're talking through it, he will kind of mentally snatch you in and out of this experience, making you do cognitive exercises. And what's so neat about that is he's got scans of veterans, paramedics, firefighters, you name it, where they did scans prior to his treatment and afterwards. You can see that parts of the brain are not activated the same way after his treatment. At this EMS conference, he said, "Who wants to volunteer?" And of course, nobody, you know, and he said, "Who wants to prove I'm full of BS?" And I was like, "Oh, that's me. I love to
Right?
prove that. And I don't
Give
believe
me a
anything you're
challenge.
saying." Yeah. And so I went up and he did just a little mini session on me. And I was like, and it worked as he pulled me out and put me back in and pulled me out and put me back in to this very traumatic situation in my brain. After he did it a few times, he let me go back to my seat and then he asked me to recount that traumatic situation. And I didn't feel triggered. My heart rate didn't go sky high. I didn't get the sweaty palms and the things that, physically react when we become triggered. And I was just amazed. And he's going to be on our show probably late January. I can't wait to just let him explain it. He does a much better job than
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah, this
Uh,
sounds super interesting,
but
actually.
but Healing the Hero is one of those companies that I just love. We work very closely with Dan Jarvis. We tag each other in videos and things like that. And Dan and I are in constant communication, and he's always just so encouraging. Even somebody who's helped heal thousands of people has time to, send me a personal text message, and that
That's
that
cool.
means a lot to me. So I really push his company, and for what you're describing and for what we just talked about, anybody listening, that would be one of the resources that we have out there that not just a ton of people know about unless you've seen him or heard him, and he's kind of pushing everything. But it's more difficult than people think to go viral, with mental health stuff, which is fine. One of the videos that I had that was just a funny video last week went to uh 30 or 40,000 views. And it was one of those things like all this great mental health stuff's down here with 900, 1,200, whatever views. And the one that's funny and has no deep rooted meaning is the one that goes viral. So I'm like, y'all could have picked a better one that had a message to it, but you know, uh, it did get us some listens, and that's a good thing. And it got us listens on all our episodes. So my hope is that people hear those good things too. Back to your book, that and pulling things from your book, because I really, in doing this, I want it to be about your book because your book is the way to get to know you. I didn't want to focus, and this is probably doing you an injustice. That's why I'm going to invite you back on the show to talk about just you. But your book really shines a light into your life like I have just not ever seen. But there was a time when you're very isolating in this book. Like you can see as you read through, like you pulled back from everybody and you were just alone in a way that I've not ever experienced myself. I never pulled back that way. I pulled back my feelings and kind of built all the walls that you talked about. But you really isolated more than anybody I've seen. What do you say to another first responder who is currently sitting in that isolation?
It's okay to talk, and that's the whole thing with the isolation for me. Is it was nobody cares to hear my story. There are so many people on TikTok and social media events that would love to hear your story, and it's perfectly okay to reach out to them and talk. My
Wow.
my my TikTok's open to anybody. I don't block anybody.
Mine
You
as
need
well.
your story heard, go ahead and write me a message, because sitting in isolation is the most dangerous place to be.
Mhm.
You lose all feeling. You become so numb to the world around you that harming yourself and other really bad things come from that. It's the worst place to be. The absolute worst place to be is just so isolated and thinking that nobody cares about you, when I do. I know you do.
I
Like,
do as well.
there's
Absolutely.
thousands of people out there, thousands of people that have the same experiences, same things, that want to hear your story. They want to let you know that, hey, we care about you. Don't do it, because the hard truth to get behind all this is first responders is that suicide in first responders is so high, but it's one of the most preventable ones if we just don't isolate and we talk. It is 100% preventable if we just learn to communicate and not isolate ourselves. And it's a hard truth, but we got to get there.
Yeah. Yeah, you're exactly right. What does redemption look like to you after you've burned it all down? How'd you define rising from the ashes?
I am still working on redemption, and it will be a long process for me, because
Sure.
I went through a really dark, long period of my life. But for me, redemption is seeing how happy. I mean, we still have our moments and stuff, but seeing my kids light up around me again and being able to notice that, hey, they're happy. Like before, I was so numb to it. It was I couldn't see their feelings. I couldn't see my wife's feelings, and being present in the moment, and that's redemption to me, is that I'm now able to be present in the moment. I'm not off in my own head wandering the darkest corners of my mind. Like, I'm able to be present in my life, and it's still a working process. Like, I still have bad days where, luckily, like my wife, I mean, there's been a couple times where I've gone off the deep end and got
Sure.
trapped in my own mind, and she flat out told me, "Hey, listen, we're not sitting here listening to this sad, sorry music. We're getting our asses out and we're going to go do something."
That's right.
And I, at first, I was kind of, in the moment, I'm mad at her, like, "What the hell? Like, did you just really yell at me and tell
Uh-huh.
me to get my ass up?" But afterwards, like, seeing how much that affected me, it was like, no, like, I needed that. I needed somebody to say, "Hey, no, we're done. Like, get up. Let's go do something. Let's get your mind off this. Let's let's move forward."
And to go back to what you were saying, if you don't have that in your life, we and other mental health focused first responders can be that for you. Sometimes it takes somebody to say, you're not going to live here. It's not good. We can get through this together. And you can ask Cody. He sent me a message. So what's it take to get on your show? And I said, you just did. We can sit here and talk. I love to hear people's stories. I love to dig into that. I love to dig into what drives people and motivates people. I think that our collective story can be such a powerful, powerful tool to help others. And I don't think it's just my story or just Cody's story. I've had everybody from EMS Avenger and paramedic Sophie and Shade Tree Cardiology, which are the three biggest TikTok stars in the EMS community right now, all the way down to just me and Kim, my co-host, that are just talking we're nobody famous. But I think everybody's collective story is important. It doesn't matter how many followers you have. It doesn't matter where you come from. If we're from the same part of the world, doesn't matter. Our brains all kind of work in the same fashion. So a lot of the things that you may be feeling and dealing with, likelihood is somebody else has dealt with it and felt it and kind of walked through it. Well, Cody, it's almost time to wrap up. These 45 to 60-minute episodes work out perfect. They always have great interaction, so I like to keep it right there. So as we close, I think that your story gives people permission to be honest about their struggle. What's the one core message you want to leave everybody with, every frontline worker about their capacity for that renewal and that redemption, no matter how dark things seem.
Kind of cliche, but you are not alone.
You're
And
not, yep,
it's
yep.
100% it's possible. It is 100% possible to get even functional. It's 100% possible to get to a point where you don't need the reliance on counseling and stuff. It's possible. It's there. And
Absolutely.
that's kind of what I want people to know, just you're not alone. Just don't think you're alone.
And you know what? That's what this kind of platform was created for. And I think your platform is very similar. Your book is similar. It's a big "you're not alone" sign that sits out there and says, look at what I've gone through. You can make it. You can do something. So where can we find your book, which again, I love? It's called Burning It Down. Cody Mecham there on the bottom. Tell us where we can find this book at.
So it's available at Amazon right now. I haven't got it anywhere else, but you go on to Amazon, search it up, and it'll pop up.
It is a fantastic read. Where can we find all your content?
So right now I'm pretty much just on TikTok. Keep my Facebook and stuff kind of private for close friends and family, but on TikTok, it's all open. You can message me even if we're not friends, and I will reply.
Yeah, he shares some great stuff. You guys go follow him. What's your? It's firefighter Meacham. Is that right? Or firefighter Cody?
Yep,
Is it
Firefighter Mecham.
okay? Meacham. I've been saying your name wrong. You should have corrected me.
That's all right. It's
All the time, I'm sure. Go buy the book, Burning It Down. Like I said, I'm 70 pages into it, and I'm really, really enjoying this raw memoir about Cody's life. It really gives me a lot of hope for all the things that I've been through. And of course, for A Silent War Within part, you can find us TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. You can also find us at asilentwarwithin.com. We also stream on YouTube, Spotify, as well as Apple Podcasts. This will be episode 27 or 8 once it releases. So we've still got some work to do. We're still going strong, and still we're booked out until end of February. So the people who reach out and want to be part of the show, I just slide them in. Last week we had three recordings that we did that I'm super excited about. So you guys go follow us, go follow Cody, go buy his book. And as always, as we leave, you guys be safe, take care of your mind, and we'll talk soon. Goodbye, everybody.
You've been listening to A Silent War Within. If this episode resonated, please subscribe, leave a review, and share with someone who needs to hear it. Remember, you're not alone and your well-being matters. It's time to end this silent war.